All right. So good afternoon, everybody. May peace and power elevation be to all of you out there. This your girl Tiffany coming through live in effect right here on the StreamYard. So if you enjoy the content that I post up, you can go ahead and make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't done so. And if you on Facebook, you can go ahead and share this channel on Facebook. So every day I do daily Black history, right? Because it's very important that we know our history and what events took place and the people that made the impact and the people that were involved in these events, or the day that these individuals that were born and the day that they passed, etc. So we always want to look at the historical events taking place with our people, whether it be good, bad, or ugly. At the end of the day, we still got to learn the history, right? So whether it's agreeable or whether it may be disagreeable, it's always important. So today, history, we're going to talk about the first Pan-African conference, right? Which is the first Pan-Africanism that took place. So, there may be many conflict that people, get it mixed up with Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey played an important role, with the UNIA, which is United Negro Improvement Association, right? But it was people like Henry Sylvester Williams, WEB DuBois, Alexander Walker, just to name a few, that played an important part in the Pan-Africanism. So what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and read about the first Pan-African conference, and then I'm going to also read a speech that and also Martin Delany. Yeah, Martin Delany played his role as well. But I'm going to read a speech that W.E.B. Du Bois gave, right? On July the 25th of 1900. And but first I want to read the information about what is Pan-Africanism. How the Pan-African conference came about. So many of you may ask, well, what is Pan-Africanism? So Pan-Africanism is basically a global connection of people that are African descent. People in the African diaspora and the people in the continent. That's what it's about. So it's about being able to connect and find a common ground on social, political, and economic concept. Now, as of today, there's plenty of people that's still practicing the ideology of Pan-Africanism. They still try to incorporate it. But then you have others who want to try to intervene and try to say Pan-Africanism is dead, but don't really have a thorough understanding what Pan-Africanism is. But they claim it to be dead, and they try to come up with a movement to replace that, like as if that Black people should not interact with others from the diaspora or those in the continent. They shouldn't be able to try to connect with them. They should only look at them as allies, and that's not the case. But we're gonna go ahead and get down to it. Also, this is my Cash App right here. So if you want to support what I'm doing and you like what I'm doing, you can go ahead and send it to the Cash App. That's my Cash App information. So if that's what you want to do, if you want to be a supporter. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. All right. I got to move a little faster today. Okay. All right. So right here, as you can see, this is a flyer of the Pan-African Conference. It's at Westminster Town Hall. It took place on July 23rd to the 25th. It says this conference is organized by a committee of the African Association for the discussion of the native races questions and will be attended and addressed by those of African descent from all parts of the British Empire, the United States of America, the Abyssinia, which is Ethiopia at that time, it was called Abyssinia, Liberia, and Haiti, which is Haiti. You are cordially and earnestly invited to attend. Conference morning 10:30 and evening 8. All right, so it got the name H.S. William, which is Henry Sylvester Williams, and he was the secretary. And then it says Palace Chamber. I guess that means Southwest. So yeah, this is the flyer. All right, and let's see. Okay, give me a second. All right. Also, okay. Also, these are one of the first Pan-African meetings they had. So these are the people that was a part of it, I'm assuming. You can't really see. So yeah. And so we're gonna get down to business. Okay, so the first Pan-African conference was held in London from the 23rd to the 25th of July of 1900, just prior to the Paris Exposition of 1900, in order to allow tourists of African descent to attend both events. Organized primarily by the Trinidadian barrister Henry Sylvester William. So let me show you guys what Henry Sylvester William looked like real quick. All right, that's Henry Sylvester William right there. That's when he was a young man. That's him. All right, so let's go ahead and continue on. So it took place in Westminster's Town Hall, now was it Claston Hall, and was attended by 37 delegates and about 10 other participants and observers from Africa, the West Indies, the U.S., and the U.K., including Samuel Coleridge Taylor, the youngest delegate, John Alcindor, was it Dadabahi Noroji, John Archer, Henry Francis Downey, and W.E.B. Du Bois, with Bishop Alexander Walters of the AME Zion Church taking the chair. Du Bois played a leading role, drafted a letter called Address to the Nation of the World to European leaders, appealing to them to the struggle against racism, to grant colonies in Africa and the West Indies the right to self-government, and demanding political and other rights for African Americans. So one of the things, the reason why the Pan-African movement came about and the conference came in, is to discuss on the political issues that was taking place with the Africans in the diaspora. And one of the things that W.E.B. Du Bois and many others, they wanted the European leaders to step back and allow African nations and those in the diaspora to lead their own countries, right? To be in control of their own economics and their politics and things like that. So that's what he wanted. They wanted to be self-governing. All right. So let's get into the background about this. On September 24th of 1897, Henry Sylvester Williams had been instrumental in founding the African Association, not to be confused with the Association for Promoting the Discovery of the Interior Parts of Africa. I'm gonna have to look into that. In response to European partitions of Africa that followed the 1884 through 85 Congress of Berlin. The formation of the association marked the early stage in the development of anti-colonialist movement and was established to encourage the unity of Africans and people of African descent, particularly in territories of British Empire, concerning itself with injustice in Britain's African and Caribbean colonies. In March of 1898, the association issued a circular calling for Pan-African Conference. Booker T. Washington, who had been traveling in the UK in the summer of 1899, wrote in a letter to African American newspaper. All right. And he wrote, what was it? This is what Booker T. Washington had to say. It says, in connection with the assembling of so many Negroes in London from different parts of the world, a very important movement has just been put upon foot. It is known as the Pan-African Conference. Representative from Africa, the West Indies, the West Indian Islands, and other parts of the world asked me to meet them a few days ago with a view to making a preliminary program for this conference, and we had a most interesting meeting. It is surprised to see the strong intellectual mold which many of these Africans and West Indians possesses. The object and character of Pan-African Conference is best told in the words of the resolution, which was adopted at the meeting referred to this. In view of the widespread ignorance which is prevailed in England about the treatment of native races under European and American rule, the African Association, which consists of members of the race residents in England and which has been in existence for nearly 2 years, have resolved during the Paris Exposition of 1900, which many representatives of the race may be visiting, to hold a conference in London in the month of May of the said year in order to take steps to influence public opinion on existing proceedings and conditioning affecting the welfare of the natives in various parts of Africa, the West Indies, and the United States. The resolution is signed by Mr. H. Mason Joseph, President, and Mr. H. Sylvester Williams as Honorable Secretary. The Honorable Secretary will be pleased to hear from representative natives who are desirous of attending at an early date. He may be addressed Common Room, Gray's Inn, London. All right. So Booker T. Washington pretty much was impressed with the idea of the Pan-African Conference, and he felt that it was needed. So it was necessary. There was a conflict, so to speak, between him and W.E.B. Du Bois, right? So, W.E.B. Du Bois had conflicts with a lot of people. It wasn't just with Booker T. Washington. He also had conflicts with Walter White. He also had a conflict with what's his name? Carter G. Woodson. They had some indifferences going on. But Booker T. Washington pretty much, was interested in the idea. He was like, wow, well, our brothers and sisters over here in the UK and in the West Indies, they coming together, and in the United States coming together and starting their own Pan-African movement to address the crisis and issues that's going on with the colonies that's owned by the British and address the racism here in America. So he was pretty impressed with it. It sounds like it to me. Okay. So let's go ahead and read this real fast, and then we're going to get to the speech that W.E.B. Du Bois did. All right. So it says here, conference concern and issues. When the first Pan-African Conference opened on Monday, July the 23rd, 1900, in London's Westminster Town Hall, Bishop Alexander Walters, in his opening address, the trial and tribulation of the colored race in America, noted that for the first time in history, Black people had gathered from all parts of the globe to discuss and improve the condition of their race, to assert their rights and organize so that they might take an equal place among nations. The Bishop of London, Mendel Creighton, gave a speech of welcome, referring to the benefits of self-government which Britain must confer on other races as soon as possible. Okay. Then it says speakers over the 3 days addressed a variety of aspects of racial discrimination. Among the papers delivered were conditions favoring a high standard of African humanity. C.W. French of St. Kitts, the Preservation of Racial Equality, Anna H. Jones from Kansas City, Missouri, the necessary concord to be established between native race and European colonists, Benito Sullivan, Haitian aide de camp to the Ethiopian Empire, the Negro problem in America, is Anna J. Cooper from Washington, the progress of our people, John E. Quillen of St. Lucia, in Africa, the Sphinx of history in the light of unsolved problems, D.E. Tobias from the United States of America. Other topics include Richard Phipps complained of discrimination against Black people in Trinidadian civil service and attack by William Meyer, a medical student at Edinburgh University, on pseudo-scientific racism. Discussion followed the presentation of the papers. On the last day, George James Christian, a law student from Dominica, led a discussion on the subject. Organized plunder and human progress have made our race their battlefield, saying that in the past, Africans had been kidnapped from their land, and in South Africa and Rhodesia, slavery was being revived in form of forced labor. Mm-hmm. So yeah, let's go ahead and let's look down to here. The conference communicated the conversion of the African Association formed by Sylvester Williams in 1897 into the Pan-African Association. The implementation of unanimously adopted address to the nation of the world sent to various heads of state where people of African descent were living and suffering oppression. The address implored the United States and the imperial European nation to acknowledge and protect the rights of people of African descent and to protect the integrity and independence of the free Negro state of Abyssinia, Liberia, and Haiti. Signed by Walter, president of the Pan-African Association, the Canadian Reverend Henry B. Brown, vice president, William, general secretary, and DuBois, chairman of the committee on the address. The document contained the phrase, "The problem of the 20th century is the problem of the color line," which DuBois would use 3 years later in the forethought of his book, The Soul of Black Folk. So now, what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna go ahead and read W.E.B. Du Bois' speech, right? Then we're gonna get back to this about Pan-Africanism. So let's go ahead and read the speech that he did. All right. So here it is. Give me a second. Okay. Okay, so here it is. Here's the speech that W.E.B. Du Bois did. It was called To the Nations of the World in London, 1900. And I'm on a website called workwith.ac.uk. And it says, in the metropolis of the modern world, in the closing year of the 19th century, there has been assembled a congress of men and women of African blood to deliberate solemnly upon the present situation and outlook of the darker race of mankind. The problem of the 20th century is the problem of the color line. The question as to how far differences of race, which shows themselves chiefly in the color of the skin and the texture of the hair, will hereafter be made the basis of denying to over half the world the right of sharing to utmost ability the opportunities and privilege of modern civilization. All right. So that's the first paragraph. And then he goes on to say, to be sure, the darker race are today the least advanced in culture according to European standards. This has not, however, always been the case in the past. And certainly the world's history, both ancient and modern, has given many instances of no despicable ability and capability among the blackest races of men. In any case, the modern world must remember that in this age, when the ends of the world are being brought so near together, the millions of black men in Africa, America, and the islands of the sea, not to speak of the brown and yellow myriads elsewhere, are bound to have a great influence upon the world in the future by reason of sheer numbers and physical contact. And then it goes on to say, if now the world of culture bends itself towards giving Negroes and other dark men the largest and broadest opportunity for education and self-development, then this contact and influence is bound to have a beneficial effect upon the world and hasten humans' progress. But if by reason of carelessness, prejudice, greed, and injustice, the black world is to be exploited and revanished and degraded, the result must be deplorable, if not fatal, not simply to them, but to the high ideas of justice, freedom, and culture which 1,000 years of Christian civilization have held before Europe. So that's where he makes his declaration of why the African nation should be independent, why the African descendant people should be able to self-govern themselves without European just trying to interfere. So far, it's a great speech. Now he goes on to say this. Check this out. And now, therefore, to these ideals of civilization, to the broader humanity of the followers of the Prince of Peace, we, the men and women of Africa in World Congress assembled, do now solemnly appeal. Let the world take no backward step in that slow but sure progress which has successively refused to let the spirit of class, of caste, of privilege, or of birth debar from life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness a striving human soul. Let no color or race be featured of distinction between white and black men, regardless of worth or ability. All right, and then down here, he say, let not the natives of Africa be sacrificed to the greed of gold, their liberties taken away, their family life debauched, their their just aspiration repressed, and avenues of advancement and culture taken from them. Let not the cloak of Christian missionary enterprise be allowed in the future, as so often in the past, to hide the ruthless economic exploitation and political downfall of less developed nations, whose chief fault had been reliance on the plight faith of the Christian church. All right, let the British nation, the first modern champion of Negro freedom, hasten to crown the work of Wilberforce and Clarkson and Burston. Yeah, what's it? Yeah, Burston and Sharp, Bishop Colenso and Livingston, and give as soon as practicable the rights of responsible government to the black colonies of Africa and the West Indies. Let not the spirit of Garrison, Phillips, and Douglas wholly die out. Wholly die out in America. May the conscience of a great nation rise and rebuke all dishonesty and unrighteous oppression towards the American Negro, and grant to him the right of franchise, security of person and property, and generous recognition of the great work he has accomplished in a generation towards raising 9 millions of human beings from slavery to manhood. It says, let the German Empire and the French Republic, true to their great past, remember that the true worth of colonies lies in their prosperity and progress, and that justice, impartial alike to black and white, is the first element of prosperity. Let the Congo Free State become a great central Negro state of the world, and let its prosperity be counted not simply in cash and commerce, but in the happiness and true advancement to its black people. And it says, let the nation of the world respect the integrity and independence of the free Negro states of Abyssinia, Liberia, Haiti, and the rest, and the inhabitants of these states, the independent tribes of Africa, the Negroes of West Indies and America, and the black subjects of all nations take courage, strive creasily. Then it goes on, and fight bravely that they may prove to the world their incontestable right to be counted among the great brotherhood of mankind. Thus we appeal with boldness and confidence to the great powers of the civilized world, trusting the wide spirit of humanity and the deep sense of justice in our age for a generous recognition of the righteousness of our cause. And that was the letter by W.E.B. Du Bois. That was his speech that he was given. So he demanded justice for African people. So he doesn't, you see, people like him and Henry Sylvester Williams and Martin Delaney, they have not really received a lot of credit for their work and what they have done for black people. Our people will always fight for injustice, racism, self-government, even reparation. And let's read some more in this article real fast. So it says, in September, the delegate petitions Queen Victoria through the British government to look into the treatment of Africans in South Africa and Rhodesia, including specified acts of injustice perpetuated by whites there, namely. All right, and here's the list. All right, so It says so-called indenture, legalized bondage of African men and women and children to white colonists, difficulties in acquiring real property, difficulties in obtaining the franchise. So it's like 7 of them right here. And then the response eventually received by Sylvester Williams on January 17th of 1901 stated, he put, "Sir, I am directed by Mr. Secretary Chamberlain to state that he has received the Queen's commands to inform you that the memorial of the Pan-African Conference requesting the situation of the native race in South Africa has been laid before Her Majesty, and that she was graciously pleased to command him to return an answer to it on behalf of her government. Mr. Chamberlain accordingly desired to assure the members of the Pan-African Conference that it settles the line on which the administration of the conquered territories is to be conducted. Her Majesty government will not overlook the interests and welfare of the native race." Okay, so what did Queen Victoria say? Days later, Victoria responded more personally, instructing her private secretary, Arthur Bigg, to write, which he did on January 21st, the day before the Queen died. Although specific injustice in South Africa continued for some time, the conference brought them to the attention of the world. All right. And so let's see. What else did W.E.B. Du Bois say? Because we're going to look at the press coverage and local reception. Now, it says the conference was reported in major British newspaper, including the Times and the Westminster Gazette, which comment that it marks the initiation of a remarkable movement in history. The Negro is at last awake to potentialities of his future, and quoted William as saying, "Our object now is to secure throughout the world the same facilities and privilege for the black as the white man enjoyed." All right, and Du Bois recorded in his report. Let's see what else he had to say. He says on Monday, July 23rd, the conference was invited to a 5 o'clock tea given by the Reform Cobden Club of London in honor of the delegates at its headquarters in the St. Ermin Hotel, one of the most elegant in the city. Several members of the Parliament and other nobles were present. A splendid repast was served, and for 2 hours the delegates were delightfully entertained by the members and friends of the club. At 5 o'clock on Tuesday, a tea was given in our honor by the late Dr. Creighton, Lord Bishop of London, at his stately palace at Farnham, which has been occupied by the Bishop of London since the 15th century. Our arrival at the palace, we found his lordship and 1 or 2 other bishops with their wives and daughters waiting to greet us. After a magnificent repast had been served, we were conducted through the extensive ground which surrounded the palace. And then it says, through the kindness of Mr. Clark, a member of the Parliament, we were invited to tea on Wednesday at 5 o'clock on the terrace of Parliament. After the tea, the male members of our party were admitted to the House of Commons, which is considered quite an honor. Indeed, the visit to the House of Parliament and tea on the terrace was the crowning honor of the series. Great credit is due to our General Secretary, Mr. H. Sylvester Williams, for these social functions. Miss Catherine Impey of London said she was glad to come in contact with the class of Negroes that composed the Pan-African Conference, and which that the best and most cultured would visit England and meet her citizen of noble birth, that the adverse opinion which had been created against them in some quarters of late by their enemies might be changed. All right, so let's look at down the legacy real fast, and then okay. It says after the conference ended, William set up branches of the Pan-African Association in Jamaica, Trinidad, and the United States. He also launched a short-lived journal, the Pan-African, in October of 1901. Although plans for the association to meet every 2 years failed, the 1900 conference encouraged the development of the Pan-African Congress. As Tony Martin noted, at least 3 of the Caribbean delegates later immigrated to Africa. George Christian of Dominica became a successful lawyer and legislator in the Gold Coast, Ghana, where he was a member of the Legislative Council from 1920 to 1940. Richard E. Phipps, the Trinidad barrister, returned home after the conference and immigrated to the Gold Coast in 1911. He remained there until his death around 1926. William himself lived in South Africa from 1903 to 1905 and 10, and died in Trinidad in 1911. All right, so with that being said, that's all for Black history. So I just want to give a little commentary and thoughts about that, as far as the speech that was given by W.E.B. Du Bois. I'm going to say this. It's a shame as a people. After 500 years, and then after the 500 years, you're still enduring some more oppression, that you have to beg someone to just give you your freedom, just give you your rights, just give you what you needed. You had to beg, you had to plead. That's a shame. And it seems like to this day, our people are still begging, if you want to put in that term, or demanding that they earn their rights and they earn the respect. No human is powerful than any other human being. But if you look at the historical case and look at the present day, you got one group of people, right, who are privileged and who reap the benefits off another group of people's oppression. And these group of people over here don't have as much natural resources in their native lands versus this group right here. They got all the natural resources. But these individuals want to go over to the area and take over and control those resources. And not only, but see, you got to understand how it works. All right. So in order for me to control your economics, I got to set a political standard in your country. And once I set a political standard, then I have to set up some type of social construct in order to keep in control of the economics. Because remember, it's all about economics. But how do you gain control of economics? You have to be able to control the people. You have to be able to control the policy. You got to set the rules in order to be in charge of the commerce. Right? So you got to set the standards. Okay? You got to set ideologies that will keep people in place or keep them under control. And that's what have been done to us by the Europeans, white folks. They have found a way to keep us under control through their politics, through their social construct, just so they can be able to maintain economic power and economic status. And this is why we're in the condition that we're in today, because we have been domesticated by these very same people. Now, if you can show me somewhere in the history books where African has domesticated Europeans and brought them over to Africa and made them into slaves in Africa and enforced their language and their policies on them, then I would listen. I would love to hear that. I would love for you to present that to me. But other than that, that's a very rare case, because you've seen that Europeans have done a lot more of controlling resources, of bring about separation, creating classification as far as race is concerned. They have done all of that. And we're just looking at for what it is. It's not to sit here and try to bash somebody or try to demoralize anyone, but you just got to look at history, and history speaks for itself. And one of these days, give me a second. Give me a second. All right, one of these days, we're going to read up on this information about this guy right here, the author of this book, Capitalism and Slavery. All right. His name was Dr. Eric Williams. So if I ever come across his information, right, I'm going to read some information out this book. All right, because he goes into the outline of how capitalism and slavery intertwines with each other. So if you guys don't have this book, please get this book at all costs. Please do so. So one of these days, I'm going to read it. And then once I read it, we're going to have a discussion about it. It's a lot of things I want to talk about and I have to really catch up on. All right. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. And please tune in tonight at 11 p.m. Saturday, right? Tonight, Eastern time, we're going to have two of our very powerful brothers debate each other about, are we African, are we indigenous, or are we Moors? All right. So by me being the person, I'm a host, and I'm not going to give my views and opinions because it's basically between these two brothers. All right. So I'm going to hold my views and my opinions. All right. But you guys know where I stand on. You know what my position is. So I ain't even really got to tell you. But I'm going to give these two brothers opportunity to debate. You know, we got a brother that's a Commission dealing with the Moorish philosophy. We got a brother over here that, you know, a proud African descendant brother that deals with Pan-Africanism. And he's also a part of Team Osiris. So just be on the lookout for that. And if you're watching from Facebook, make sure you go on my channel and look it up on Facebook. If you're watching from YouTube, right, make sure you subscribe to YouTube and share the video on YouTube. All right. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for watching. As always, may peace and power elevation be to you all. And please be safe out here. Be careful out here. You know, we are in the midst of crisis. So just keep your head up and stay focused. All right. Peace.